Welcome back to Core Anesthesia. Whether you are a student prepping for tests and boards or a CRNA here to earn CEUs, we are glad you've joined us. For more about us, make sure to check us out on Instagram at Core Anesthesia and online at coreanesthesia.com.
Welcome back to Core Anesthesia. I'm Cole here with Tanner, and today we want to do a discussion from our 2022 Student Anesthesia Conference in July. We're so excited to announce that several of the speakers gave us their permission to go ahead and post their recorded session so that those that were unable to attend would be able to benefit from the knowledge and wisdom that they had to pass on. We know it was beneficial to a lot of the people that were able to listen to it live, and we hope it'll be beneficial to you today.
Like Cole said, our next session, this is going to be all things 1099. We have the resident expert of the 1099 world with us. Alesia Quante is going to be with us for this session. And I know for many people, when I talk to them about 1099 and going 1099, it just seems like this big abyss and scary information of, what I do for insurance. How do I find jobs? What am I going to do to set up a company? Do I do an LLC, S Corp? There's just like all these terms that are being thrown around, and it seems very scary. And so we're excited to have Alesia joining us and kind of break down some of these things for us. Our session sponsor is Joe Kramer, an independent financial advisor. He works with Healy Financial. He has a designation of Certified Financial Planner, or CFP, and specializes in helping CRNAs with their financial lives. He advises CRNAs regarding income replacement strategies, student loan management strategies, and tax-efficient wealth accumulation strategies. For a free, no-obligation conversation, contact Joe at jkramer@healyfinancial.net or 574-968-1521. Now to introduce our speaker, Alesia Quante. Alesia has been a CRNA for 22 years. For the last 21 years, she has enjoyed the work-life balance offered by the 1099 CRNA lifestyle. She graduated Summa Cum Laude with her master's in health sciences in the Anesthesia for Nurses program from the Medical University of South Carolina in December of 2001. Her 1099 practice locations have been in multiple hospitals, ambulatory surgery centers, and physicians' offices on the east and west coasts of Florida, as well as coastal and central Georgia. Over the last decade, she was a 1099 chief CRNA at a GI center in Savannah, Georgia, where she guided the practice from an ACT to a thriving independent CRNA-only staff. Throughout her career, Alesia has helped CRNAs control their schedules, earnings, and savings by teaching them how to transition from W-2 to 1099. In 2020, Alesia launched the 1099 Success Academy to teach CRNAs practice management with her AANA accredited 1099 Freedom Masterclass. Alesia was a live aboard sailor with her high school sweetheart husband for 22 years, and she presently lives on the Isle of Hope, Georgia, with her husband and 2 teens. It is my pleasure to welcome Alesia as our next speaker.
Hey, it's so great to see you. Thank you so much, Tanner. What a wonderful welcome. What a great a presentation that Joe Rodriguez just gave. I was just honored to hear that. And honestly, I'm honored and humbled to be a part of this presentation. So thank you guys so much for having me. I was a W-2 CRNA just because it seemed natural when I graduated from Medical University of South Carolina. And, I was working along and I just kept seeing all these 1099 CRNAs around me, and they just seemed so light and uplifted. And it was that impact of that feeling that I sensed from them that launched me into 1099 many, many moons ago. So I had actually been out of school only 6 months when I found a mentor and went into 1099. And it's something that I've always felt that we CRNAs really need to do for each other is to provide mentorship, but I really wasn't sure how. So I developed a class called the 1099 Freedom Masterclass. You can see that if you look on the web at 1099 Success Academy. And what I do is I just provide mentorship ongoing for a year for whoever joins my class. So let me go ahead and basically I'm going to give you a preview of what I teach. It does not have to be scary. It can actually be very warm and fuzzy and just a super positive experience moving from W-2 to 1099, or even I would not rule out starting out as 1099. After all, I want you to think of it as a tax strategy, as a retirement savings strategy, as a college loan education, a payback strategy. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm ready to go ahead and move into our slideshow. And so here we go. I'm going to talk to you about the 3 keys of joyful CRNA life as a 1099 CRNA and how it is so much freer. So just one moment. First of all, because this has a lot to do with financial matters, as well as matters of the heart and matters of your lifestyle and matters of your schedule choice, because it has to do with money, I definitely want to express this disclaimer. And I'm not going to bother you by reading the disclaimer out loud, but I always want you to remember that no matter what you do in life, you should go ahead and create these relationships with what I call the bail team, the banker. Go to your bank that you bank with, or go onto a Zoom conversation, meet and speak eye to eye to a person at your bank, to your accountant, either Zoom. They don't have to even be in your local area, or face to face, right? Or your insurance agents. And those you may need to speak to over Zoom. Most of these national guys, sort of like Jake Bevilacqua, that's on the 1099 Success Community. He is a CRNA, but his family business is life and disability. And Anthony Habashi, who was an anesthesia, what do you call it? Assistant, well, a tech. But now he sells health insurance only to nurse anesthetists or CRNAs. So, these representatives, you need to get your bail team together, whether you go 1099 or not, and double check everything that you learn. So, the reason that I narrowed it down to 3 keys is because there's really so much to talk about. There are so many aspects to the 1099 CRNA life. I mean, listen, my negotiation lecture is 2.5 hours long because there is so much to think about. It's such a deep dive. When you start talking about creating your benefits package and why you need to do that, and, things like your taxation, that is 3 of my lectures. That is 6 hours worth of lectures in and of itself. So, I can't cover all of the details, but I can definitely give you some of the key aspects that I want you to be able to take home with you. And I think the most important factor in our life is mental stability. Whatever brings us joy, we have to tap into that. While we're at work every day, we should seek these joyful experiences, find the joy in our life, even after that terrifying moment where maybe your stomach drops, your heart rate went up, you dealt with whatever it was, and then now let's find the joy. Let's look back on that. So there is a lot of life balance to be found even in our workplaces. But beyond that, there's a life balance that you've got to find for yourself and your family, because if you don't have that balance, you will feel like you're living half of a life and have regrets. And I don't want anyone to do that. So this is why I'm teaching 1099. I mean, the fact is, when we go in to the operating room suite, when we go into any facility, hospitals, ASCs, accredited doctors' offices, they all look surprisingly the same. You will see the crash cart. You will see the anesthesia cart. You will see the oxygen, the suction. You will just see everything that you see that you're accustomed to going into any OR and seeing. You can work anywhere. When you work under medical direction, like at an anesthesia care team, as a 1099 CRNA, you are being treated exactly the same as a W-2 CRNA, except the only difference is when it's time to go and you've said, look, I can be here for 8 hours today, and say you've negotiated an 8-hour minimum, then, if they come and ask you, they will politely ask you if you would like to stay, or if they need you, or they'll say, thanks for your help today. If you leave at 2:30 and you've gotten your 8 hours, you're out the door. So that is really the primary difference that I found. Even as a graduate from anesthesia school, I went and worked in a hospital in Palm Beach Gardens. And I worked in the ORs that were mainly vascular and cardiac at first. And so did a lot of hearts, did a lot of valves. And I was W-2 at the time. But the fact of the matter is I really just wasn't happy. The schedule was really oppressing me. And so I decided to become 1099. And I did work there a couple of months as 1099. I had gone ahead and found a CRNA group that had contracts, just like Joe has, contracts with many facilities. This is the situation I was in South Florida. But I noticed that nobody defined me differently. If I was going into a craniotomy and I had questions, or I asked for another set of hands during setup, everyone is so supportive. Everyone wants you to take the very best care of your patient, and everybody will know that you're a new graduate. And it's okay. I mean, all of us started out as new graduates. And, if anyone says something negative or rude to you, then that's just their spirit. That's not you, and you can't do anything about that. So just know that you're fine. You're prepared for this. You're some of the smartest and the best of all healthcare professionals to be able to even get into anesthesia school. To make it through anesthesia school also takes a special person. And then to get out, you are so brave and you are so wise. So just stick with the program. Before long, you're going to pass that milestone where you don't even think about what you're getting into. So every day will be a good day, until you get to the situation that it's not. And that does happen, right? I mean, every now and then you've worked in some toxic situations. I am sure you can sense the toxicity in some workplaces. So when you do end up in a situation like that, do recall that you only have so much time on this earth. Anything can happen to you at any given time. And I'm not trying to be dismal. I'm just being real. You need to carpe diem and grasp the day. Keep your wheels turning. Keep your eyes open. I suggest everyone be credentialed at least 2 separate anesthesia workplaces, not necessarily within the same group, but 2 different anesthesia groups. So I definitely believe you should keep your options open. Sometimes one thing will lead to another, word of mouth. After you get experience, you're going to find that some of the surgeons you work with, they have offices. You may have to take your child to get a tonsillectomy. Next thing you know, you see all the anesthesia staff there. Ask about it. Hey, do you guys need any help? Wisdom teeth come out. That's your next chance. If you get any plastic surgery, hey, I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities out there, what I call in the real world, outside of the big buildings of hospital facilities. I personally craved that kind of outpatient life. I personally had a little issues with being in a huge facility where I couldn't be outside. You heard how I was a liveaboard sailor for 22 years. There is something about the outdoors that just makes me just so happy. And I know many of you are like that. And so honestly, it was as simple as that. For my break to freedom was I needed to get out of the hospital setting. And I continue to work in the hospital setting. I think it's important. But I don't do it much because now I have so many outpatient areas. And as well, I'm teaching now, which I absolutely adore. I adore reducing others' anxiety with things. It's nice to kind of be the counselor CRNA to hear what are the anxieties, what are the problems. And as I teach my CRNA 1099 Freedom Masterclass, I am available to coach at any time. So that's another beauty of 1099. I was able to develop a side gig that really spoke to me and to my heart. And at the same time, I continue to work at the hospital, plastic surgery center, a GI clinic, a pain clinic, and an eye center. So I juggle all of those places. But, you know, it could be that you've been, and it probably is true, that as an RN, you were W-2. That is typically normal. And, you know, you might think that 1099 is just too bizarre of a setup, too difficult to set up. I mean, the setting up of 1099 happens in your home. It happens in your coffee shop with your laptop. You know, it happens on the phone where you're making phone calls and getting things going. So that's why it's nice to have a mentor. The other thing is a lot of people feel like, oh, 1099, I don't have enough experience for that. But just know that it looks the same on the inside of the facility, but you interview a facility yourself. Not only are facilities interviewing you when you go to them for work, but you're interviewing them. You know, you want situations where you can continue to grow. Just because you've decided you need to save 3 times as much in your retirement as a W-2 can, that should not count against your ability to grow and learn to do blocks, you know, really cement that, you know, continue to anticipate and take care of difficult airways and things like that. So, you know, you need to stay in practice. Even though you're 1099, don't let anybody tell you that it's got to be different, because it doesn't. And also, imposter syndrome is a real thing. A lot of people feel, you know, even, you know, new physician graduates that are anesthesia, anesthesiologists, nurse anesthesiologists, just so many people. Maya Angelou had imposter syndrome. Arnold Schwarzenegger still has never felt like he was so big and bad as the movies depicted him. So, you know, even Albert Einstein couldn't believe people were drinking his Kool-Aid, you know, and every day he battled imposter syndrome. So it's important to Google it, look it up, think about it, talk about it to your friends, and understand this is a part of like 90% of all the human beings that walk the earth. Know that it is not you. And yes, you're certainly good enough for this. So be brave. You can do it. You know, it doesn't mean when you're courageous that you're not afraid, but don't let fear stop you. You have to push past it. You have to move through it. So the reason this presentation is going to help you is that you've got a mentor teaching it. You know, you may wonder about work-life balance of a CRNA. I know you've seen CRNAs who are sacrificing their world and they're working 60 hours a week, but what is the end game? So you're going to learn how you can have the life savings, the lifestyle, and the income that you really, which would really create a balance for you. And honestly, I personally feel like it's helpful to have a roadmap. Now, you can join the 1099 Success community on Facebook and so many other communities. Joe has TNAG, TNAG. What a fantastic group. Just so many groups where you can ask questions one at a time and get your answers. But there is nothing better than having a mentor. So find a 1099 mentor, whether or not you take my class. So, but it's just, you know, you can spend the time to research all of this yourself, but with so much else going on, it is always better to have a mentor because things do fall through the cracks. So I'm going to show you how you can become financially savvy. I'm going to show you how you can work when and where you want so that you can maybe see your daughter in her wedding gown try-ons, or you can see your little child in the play. It is so important in our life to be able to look ahead and plan ahead a schedule and then work that schedule without having to negotiate with the 20 other CRNAs that are in our group. And that is where 1099 comes in. So, you may want to move from W-2 to 1099 without psychological and financial stress, find where the positions are, and learn negotiation. This is another thing. Negotiation is not really taught in a real focused manner. So it's super nice to gain those skills. It's nice to have somebody teach us that. But I personally, this is my personal opinion, is that I had burnout as a W-2. I had so much call. I did not realize, I just didn't get it that we were so understaffed. And so my call ratio was very high. And literally I was burning out, and I was wondering, how did I get to this place within just a few months of graduating? And it really scared me. So, the other thing that can happen is if you start out as a W-2, often you'll get sort of a Stockholm syndrome where you're willing to stay in a toxic location, and you'll tell your cohorts that this is fine, you can tolerate it. But sometimes, and I have found this to be true, most people don't realize how unhappy they are when they're in the thick of it. So, if you're sensing that you're in a bad situation, but that you're just pushing through it and you're not looking on either side to what else there is out there, it's a good idea to find a mentor or a supportive group of people and talk to them about it. So what about gaslighting? I know that you have heard physician anesthesiologists kind of talk down and in very detailed ways direct CRNAs, or grab the syringes and push the drugs. Once I had an anesthesiologist pick up my drugs that were perfectly labeled, and I don't know what he was thinking. The plan was for an LMA. We talked about it, and he goes and pushes the drugs, and before I can say anything, he's grabbed the rocuronium and pushed it. And I'm like, what are we doing now? So it is always better to push your own drugs. Once you start letting other people push your drugs, you really lose ownership in that. And it makes us feel kind of small. And that is just not a good feeling. So there are reasons that physician anesthesiologists do this. And a lot of the times they'll tell you, you really should stay here. If you were my kid, I would tell you to stay here. But you're not their kid. You're an adult. You do the same scope of practice. You have the same scope of practice that they have. It's just that many of them sit on the boards of these hospitals, and they create these scopes of practice, these minimized scopes of practice, clinical privileges for the CRNAs, so that you don't have the opportunity to do some of these things. So the boiling frog, I know you've all heard of that. So once you've been in a place, sometimes you just don't feel it anymore, and it's gotten very bad. So check yourself every so often. I was willing to step out of the norm. Thank God I did that. I honestly think that it's always best if you can not work in an anesthesia care team environment, but more of an environment such as Joe is a proponent of, where the physicians and the anesthetist, when they do work together, they're working in a collaborative practice. Everybody has a room. They're very supportive and kind to each other. That is just so fantastic. I just felt so fortunate that I met the 1099 CRNAs when I did, and that they were willing to talk to me, and they gave me so much information. I sat down with one mentor for hours while she drew out like the plan that I worked with to open an LLC, that I would wait to be an S corporation, that I would open a business bank account, that I would open a business savings account, that I would open a business credit card, and what I did with all of those, and how I paid my health insurance, and what account that should come out of, the whole cash flow, so that you can really maximize your tax deductions. And so many people do not do that, because it really takes some in-depth knowledge. But we are good with numbers, right? So I was just much happier. And so I know that the reason you're watching this is because you are interested in these benefits of 1099. So what we're going to cover are these 3 keys to success. So you'll learn how to completely control your lifestyle, your workplaces, and the amount of money that you make. You'll be able to find a mentor to smooth your path, and you will just not have to worry about the work, because what I am getting to is that when you are finding a workplace and you go in there, and I teach this in my class, it's called the fetch method, how to negotiate your way into a position anywhere. And you say, hey, do you guys need any anesthesia help, just to back you up? Then honestly, at that point, and they say yes, you work on a contract with them and get it signed. When the credentialing starts, whether you have a contract or not, at the time of credentialing, once you've turned your credentialing in, they've got something invested. So, so that's what I teach. Once you've got that done, and then you look for their calendar, and you're set. So that's part of my roadmap to being a 1099 CRNA. I mean, I suffered reality shock. Some of you may as well. Do not let it turn you off of this entire profession that we worked so hard to get into. There are leaders, there are mentors everywhere. Probably most of the people that you have interacted with or seen in the Facebook groups, they are willing to speak to you. So just use that little search app and look for the subject of what is concerning you, and you'll find plenty of people. There are a lot of mentors out there. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out. So, the 1099 reps do include your schedule of availability. You have to look ahead on your calendar, sometimes 6 months to a year ahead, and you just mark it out. And when it comes time to turn in your schedule, you go right ahead and you turn that schedule in. So I'm just checking to make sure I didn't get a text from Tanner or anybody, but no, everything looks good. So turn in your schedule early. You have to do vacation planning. I teach where that you have banking buckets. And so this is how you save for your vacation. Just kind of drip it in there. You're going to be making more money as a 1099 CRNA. So you are going to have the time to take your vacations and the money. You just have to schedule it. You have to be smart about it. Put the money in a savings account. Do not touch it except for that. I have a Christmas account, a vacation savings account, an estimated taxes savings account, and so on. And that is how it goes. So, the tax breaks are incredible. I'm about to go through that next. So also saying, yeah, I'm an independent contractor and I work here, 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 and here. That gives me such a sense of pride. And others feel like they interpret that you're very flexible. We're all flexible, but the fact that you're open to go work into different workplaces, yeah, you're a stranger for a day, and then you're a little uncomfortable the next day, and then suddenly you just fall in the groove. So 3 days in, you're pretty much, you know where things are, you've done your scavenging, you're getting to know some of the people. It becomes very easy. So don't be afraid to get out of the comfort zone, okay? Because you will find happier work environments possibly than the one you're in. And then at some point, life happens, attrition goes on, you move into that workplace for more of your work time. So your practice expansion is within your control. So this is just an example of my availability calendar. Typically, I try not to schedule myself on Wednesdays. I still like to do 8-hour minimums. Sometimes I'll end up working 10 hours at a plastic center. And I look ahead to see when my kids have special things, and I mark that out so that I definitely won't schedule myself. So then wherever you work will request your schedule of availability ahead of time. Some of the workplaces are going to ask you if you want to do call. I think taking call is the best way to get independent practice even if you're a W-2, or whatever you are. It's a great way to get independent practice. So, I am not opposed to call. I just personally don't want to take call. It makes me depressed to be up at night. I mean, but I just really, it's true. So that's why I have worked my life to work daytime schedules and primarily outpatient facilities that are 7 to 3. All right. So what is a 1099? There's a 1099 form. Okay. And you can see this is something that the person who hires you at the anesthesia group that you work for would give you when you're a 1099. And then this is the W-2 form. And I know you've seen this forever. Well, as a 1099, you can choose to be an S corporation, which gives you even a much stronger tax savings. And so you would do your own W-2 forms. I have a class, QuickBooks for 1099 CRNAs, and it teaches you how to do your own payroll. So, but I don't teach it. Megan Connor is the professional enthusiastic QuickBooks CRNA. I actually just pay my bookkeeper to do my books, but I do teach bookkeeping in the 1099 Success class. But Megan, that is really her forte. So this is an example that maybe you've seen before. You know how there are weekends and holidays. When you take those away, you've got, actually they're weekends. You take all the weekends away, there's about 260 work days a year. Then consider you want to take about 30 vacation days off, including holidays. Your actual days worked are 230. You multiply that times 8-hour days, and you work typically about 1,840 hours a year. Your expected hourly rate as a W-2, we will just say, for sake of chatting, that it's around $140 an hour as a W-2. So your annual pay rate would be around $257,000 times those hours. And then you multiply that out, or you look at the tax tables and you'll see your tax rate is above 30%. So that's a lot of money. 30% of $24,000, it's like $80,000. It's a lot of taxes. So if you're 1099, and this is why a lot of people become 1099, you're able to push that tax rate down. So say you're, typically you get paid 30 to 40% more around the rate. It's about $180 an hour. If you look at any W-2 jobs, just multiply that out times 0.3, add 0.3 times that, or 0.4 times that to that amount. And that's how much you would negotiate for or expect as a 1099. Your pay annually at this rate would be $330,000, but your tax rate would be far less at 15 to 20%. So that's close to $60,000 a year. That is $20,000 less than as a W-2 that you are not giving to Uncle Sam. And where should that money be going? It should be going to pay off your big student loan debts, and it should be going into your retirement. If you put it into retirement, you should put a good bit into retirement. That keeps your tax rate low. So this is the concept, right? The whole tax savings concept, side by side. W-2, you make the money, then you pay the taxes. It's come out of your stub, and then you get your earnings, and now you're going to go home and you're going to pay your cell phone, your computer, your car payment, your meals, your travel, whatever. You're going to pay all of that out of your bills. And like your education, your CME, you can't deduct any of that. So there's not very much left over for savings. Whereas 1099, you get your pay stub. It just shows your flat earnings. And then you pay your a portion of all of your home expenses because you've got a home office, a portion of all of your vehicle because you're going to use that for business. You're going to pay a portion of all the vehicle related expenses. You're going to pay just so much stuff. If your roof gets a hole in it, then you've got to repair the roof, and the percent of home office that you have, you get to deduct it, because without the roof, you can't have a home office. So then at that point, you've reduced your taxable income to a small amount. You pay taxes on it, and you get more money in your pocket. So that's the theory. So that is how, and what I've just told you, that's how it shrinks your tax rate along with your retirement savings, that when you put the money into it, you can deduct it. Also, I do state charitable contributions. That reduces, I don't have to pay taxes in Georgia if I pay state charitable contributions. So I support a rural hospital for $10,000 a year. And that covers my Georgia state taxes. So that is a federal tax deduction. So it's in what you know. You see what I mean? So it will save you. Learning about your taxation will give you a return on investment like no other. So, so I teach you how to do that, but you can study it and you can learn it yourself as well. Here's an example. So if you bring in $257,000 in wages, you pay $66,000 in taxes, which is 35%. You make $132,000 as a single filer, or $207,000 net as married filing jointly. But here is your 1099. Now, this slide, just take a look. $331,000 minus business expenses and minus reasonable salary. So that will give you $110,000 business expenses. And you're like, how am I going to have $50,000 business expenses? Believe me, you will. By the time you add everything up, like everything, it all adds up. So then you have your net business income, and then now you go to your Form 1040 and you subtract your above the line deductions. And, because you are in business, you get to have some deductions that others don't. You can deduct your health insurance, half of your FICA, your 401k contribution, and your business match is actually going to be part of your business expenses. And your spouse's 401k contribution, which you can turn your spouse or your older kids into a W-2 very safely, and deduct all of that from your business. So now you're really dropping your taxable income. Then your below the line deductions include like state contributions, your standard deduction or itemized, and your QBI, your qualified business deduction, which the U.S. government wants you to be an entrepreneur. And let me just tell you, once you become an entrepreneur in this way as a CRNA, where the income is guaranteed, you're going to have a successful business. Well, at that point, you can start a little side gig. Start with beaded bracelets. It doesn't matter what you do, Start with creating helpful products for other CRNAs and sell it on Etsy. I know Tammy Schmidt does a great job, and she puts together all these great educational resources. And you can, like $20, you can support a CRNA. I mean, things like that. But anyway, bottom line, there's your net taxable income. Okay, right? Remember, your revenue was $330,000. Your taxable income $60,000. That's crazy. Okay. So let's just look at that. So I've kind of put it on white and black here and yellow. And what that $60,000 is taxable income. And so this is how low your taxes will be. You spread that over the year and you pay that as estimated taxes quarterly. And that doesn't include the payroll. Remember that $60,000 in payroll? You're going to divide that amount up over the year, or you can save it in a savings account and run just one payroll. But there will be federal and state taxes. This also does not include your state taxes. This is all federal taxation. So there's still some more taxes in there, but if you're comparing apples to apples, you can see how far ahead. You can look at the federal tax brackets. This is the 1099 zone. This is the W-2 zone. Once again, married filing jointly, 1099 zone, W-2 zone. Some people even get into the over 30% area. So you don't have to set up a business entity upon graduation. You can get started as a sole proprietor using your 1040 form and doing nothing different, but just starting your bookkeeping and using Schedule C to fill out your expenses. You're going to give your employer a W-9 form and keep that on your file along with your credentialing materials. And you won't fill out a W-4. And then I think it's wise to save 20% of your net income. And if you're not sure how much that's going to be, then save 20% of your total income. And at the end of the year, you can take a look and see how much of that money you want to put, just put a portion of that in your estimated taxes. That's why they call it estimated. And then talk to your CPA and put some of that in your retirement. So you notice that some of your benefits, right? You might be like, oh man, benefits, I got to pay them. But health insurance for you and your family is tax deductible up until your kids are 26 years old. So it reduces your taxable income. So mentally shrink that amount of that cost of health insurance. Disability, get that as soon as you can because you're young and you want it to cost the least. Once you buy it, it's going to kind of stay that amount. So life insurance, same deal as disability. Go ahead and get it. You might be like, why do I need it? Believe me, we all need it. Somebody loves us and they're going to have to take care of things. God forbid something happen. We all need life insurance, malpractice insurance. So that is tax deductible as well. So I just added it all up for you. Here are the ranges, how much your benefits are going to cost you. And so the total cost per year is going to be between $16,000 and $24,000 a year. So if you divide that by the number of full-time hours, you'll see what it's actually worth. When you're getting paid, that it's somewhere an average of $10 an hour. So people stress that they have to pay their own benefits. Do not stress. That's going to the only one you should really deduct out of all of those I went through, the only two are malpractice insurance and health insurance. The rest you should not, because when the time comes that you need them, they'd be taxed, and that's not nice for your family. So, okay. So, all right. So your W-2, comparing W-2 to 1099, regarding your retirement, they will match you 6% of your gross income. We'll say that's about $15,000 and say you contribute the full amount of $20,000. That's $36,000 in your retirement account. But if you are 1099 self-employed, your amount that you can save for your retirement is going to be between $38,000 and $58,000 max. And the lower end is if you're an S corporation. That does reduce the amount that you can put, but it doesn't reduce it below what you would get from a 6% match as a W-2. So let me just check my time. Okay. So sign-on bonuses. I just want to say they're usually taxed in the year that they're given. So when you're given the $60,000 sign-on bonus, mentally deduct 30%. So now you're not getting all that much money. And you said, hey, no matter if I hate this place and the people make me extremely uncomfortable, say they cuss the whole time. That makes me really uncomfortable. I just can't work in a setting like that. And a lot of the young orthopods love to cuss. I can't. So I would not want to have received a stipend from those people. I actually returned my stipend because I went into that situation and I said, you know what, just here, take it back. What I did, I got a loan and very low interest loan. I paid them back. Totally worth it. Because these are the things that happen at these the sign-on bonus locations. Okay, could be toxic. Could be they won't let you push induction agents. Could have high attrition for things that you aren't even aware of yet. Limited opportunities to grow and work independently, even though they might tell you, oh yeah, you'll get to do that. Now you go out and you talk to the CRNAs, get some phone numbers, make a facility visit. Gather phone numbers, gather some, say, can I text you, ask you a couple questions? Culturally remote locations. That is fine, but sometimes you may take a really high paying job and have like 26 weeks off a year, and yet you're somewhere where there's no one and nothing going on. So you have to mentally be prepared for that. And that's just difficult sometimes. So, or this happened recently in Florida where a new anesthesia service came in because of no compete clauses. All the other CRNAs were let go and they couldn't come back and work there. So when you think W-2 is so solid, it really isn't, because stuff can happen over your head and, now you're scrambling to find work. So, but that's another opportunity to get a sign-on bonus if you were going to get one. And so here's the breakdown that it's $42,000 after taxes, and you divide that by your full-time hours, and that's $7 an hour, right? And for potentially negative environments. So I suggest you skip the bonus. That's my opinion. And tell them you like the position, you like the place, $8 more an hour. You'll be glad to come and work there. Don't be afraid to negotiate. And, with 6 months to 1 year commitment, and that way you can kind of honeymoon with that place and see if you like it. And be sure you have a 90-day exit at any given time, so that if you get miserable, you need to get out. You need to be able to not feel trapped. It does bad things to people. We don't need that, right? So during the time, credential with a second location. Joy does come from having leverage. So does higher negotiated rates. So never or only be credentialed at one anesthesia group. So this is just a quote from somebody who said that even though it was controversial in their first job, they left at 6 months. And the price that she was paying was that she wasn't getting dignity and respect. And she did find that at her next place. So, no worries. Practice locations, as you know, they can be locums, which is temporary coverage, usually months where you travel away from home. Or you can be locums, this is what I do. Travel locally near where you are, do some per diem work near home. I could work as much. I wish I could clone myself. I could walk into anywhere in Savannah and say, hey, do y'all need help? They're going to need help. So, as long as you are working in 2 or 3 workplaces, like my workplaces, I've worked for decades now, but because I have so many workplaces, I'm an independent contractor. I fit the IRS rules for that. You can work at urban level 1 hospitals, rural, medium, small hospitals. You can work in prison hospitals. You can look in Gasworks or Indeed. Typically, the best 1099 jobs are not advertised. Wherever there's a W-2 job, go and, talk to the practice manager for anesthesia and say, I'm really interested in working here. So, or the practice manager if it's an outpatient facility. And there's a list of various kinds. Outpatient cardiac labs are coming up right now. And so there's just so much to do, even if you decide to open a ketamine clinic or aesthetics one day. So you're just never stuck in anesthesia. This is just the best world to live in. So just credential many, many workplaces and achieve balance. I honestly feel like, and this too, that ACTs, you'll get gaslit. It's easy to degrade your confidence. It's hard to grow, but sometimes it's where you want to be to begin with. It's okay, but while you're there, credential at a second workplace. Does 1099 mean solo? Not at all. You can work collaboratively at so many of these locations. They know, looking at your resume, and when you come in, let people know, hey, I've been doing this for so long, I want more experience with X. And you'll likely get that. You just have to communicate. I just want to really quickly touch on the fact that, you're very smart. There are 60,000 CRNAs, the same amount of MDAs. MDA growth is slightly higher than ours right now. So we anesthetize, along with the MDAs, 50 million surgeries a year in the U.S. That turns down to 1,000 cases a year per CRNA. And I just want you to know there is a scarcity of all anesthesia providers. Demand is high right now and supply is low. So you know what that means. So don't be afraid to negotiate. don't talk yourself down because you've just graduated. So we earn 30% more than some physicians. I mean, we earn more than 30% of all physicians. And why are we worth so much? It's because we give so much vigilance. We use math and science. We manage ourselves, people, time, things. We have manual dexterity. We can reason, interpret, problem solve, take action. We are well trained. You're worth every penny. So feel empowered. Don't feel imposter, self-talk. Hey, I'm amazing. I can totally do this. This is all about this one patient I'm taking care of right now. Nothing else matters. So once we were RNs and our fee from the insurance companies came to the hospitals as part of the room charge. So that's not how it is anymore. Now we're CRNAs. The insurance companies pay the anesthesia companies we work for each anesthetic. CRNAs are paid exactly what MDs are paid by Medicare, 100% if we're in a room by ourselves. It's 50-50 split if we're in a room with an MD. If you're working with a group of MDs at an ACT, it's likely that they're charging you out as 100% pay. Okay, now think about this. That payment is collected by a billing company who pays the billing company 5 to 10% of their revenue by the, and then that anesthesia company pays you. Okay, so there is room with all these numbers of money coming straight from the insurance companies to work. But my lesson here too is that when you work in a nice outpatient area, the commercial payers are going to pay more, and you're probably going to be able to make more money. So, even if people who are private don't pay a dime, and these are the Medicaid payments and Medicare payments per unit, they're low. You see the insurance companies pay up to $150 a unit. Each case you do is worth 5 to 10 units. So that's a lot of money for each case. I'm talking even 30-minute GI cases. So there is money to pay you and to pay you fairly. What the market rate is for experienced anesthetists, honestly, when you start working, you are going to be making that same amount of money for the anesthesia company you work for. So learn your market rate in your area. Study negotiation, CRNA valuation, and get mentorship, and all of that is part of my class. So, we talked about this. We talked about if you're having powerlessness and convenient work days, you don't want to compete, then you probably have the mindset for a 1099. A lot of W-2s feel like they're not earning what they're worth. They feel like they're being owned. They feel like little worker bees. They're bored. So 1099 CRNAs do make more. They have a lower taxable income, and you do have more control and freedom. And you work less and you earn more. Typically, we still work a lot. We can't help it, right? So if it's too complicated seeming, that's why you should get a mentor. Learn the rates in your area, network. This is important. Add 30 to 40% for 1099 and save money for your vacations. Don't think, oh, I don't get paid vacation. Pay yourself for vacation. That's why you're making that extra money. You can see the benefits were only like 15% of what you pay or less. You've got plenty of money for vacations. You have to have some self-control and learn how to save it. So there's just a few key concepts. And then the work is unlimited, like I was telling you. There's a huge scarcity. Don't give in to imposter syndrome. Every place you work, it looks the same once you walk into the door. Smile at people. Be very humble. Be very deferential. Even in your negotiations, give the power to whoever you're negotiating with. Don't pop out a number. Get to know that person. Don't even bring up your rate. Make them ask you what is your rate or tell you what they're offering. And then don't accept it right away. Go home. Say, look, do it on a Tuesday. So you can say, look, I'd like to meet with you on Thursday. So everybody can go home and think about it. If they need to talk to somebody because you're asking more than they're offering, then they can. That totally happened to me at a pain clinic that was offering $125. And now, I mean, it's ridiculous. They're paying me $210. Maybe that isn't ridiculous. But, you just have to negotiate. And negotiate means do not close on the deal right now. Don't close on it right away. Give it a couple of days. Give it a week. And then go back and talk. In the scarce times, you can get paid well so that you can feel happy on the inside. I know it's not all about money, but I know you're concerned about your student loans. And I want you to experience pleasure in your life. So, this is just the best, to me, the very best lifestyle. And so if you're ready to learn about it, you can figure it out on your own. A lot of people do, and then they don't actually do it because it's scary. Anything new is scary, or get help from somebody who's done it. So that's why I created the 1099 CRNA Freedom Masterclass, and it just helps you with all of these things. It's a 10-unit course. I have 10 speakers. It is little less than $1,000 for students, but that's because you get a year of me. And so I also give weekly live classes and that kind of thing. But anyway, so if I just helped you do the business setup and everything and helped you not be so angst out about it, I know it's worth it. You can go to the 1099 Success Academy website, read the testimonials. And so I appreciate your time today. I feel like I have run way over. So we'll go ahead and close this out. This is my my little QR code. Isn't that what they call it? So just take a picture of it if you want to. And if you have any questions, let me know. Sorry, I've run over. What can I do for you guys?
Thank you for listening to this pre-recorded session from our 2022 student conference. For more about our speakers, please read their bio in the show notes, and we'll see you on the next episode.